When I retired from the Army Corps of Engineers, I thought I'd finally found peace. A quiet acre and a half outside of Pine Bluff Ridge, tucked near the edge of an aging forest line, far enough from the freeway hum to hear the breeze through the pines. I bought the house with the well, not because it was cheaper, but because I didn't trust city water. Never have. The well was old, deep, and steady. I had the whole system tested, clean, strong flow, no contamination. It was my kind of reliable. I was 57 then, widowed. Just me and the dog Scout, a three-legged mutt with more heart than bark. He was my shadow, always trailing behind as I planted tomatoes or tinkered with the gutters. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet sometimes. A planned development just 10 years old with tan stucco houses and retirees who trimmed their bushes with scissors. I wasn't part of the welcome committee. That's not my style. I kept to myself, waved when waved at. Paid my dues to the HOA like everyone else, even though they felt more like taxes than anything voluntary. The first time I noticed something was off was a Thursday, early May. I turned on the hose in the backyard to fill Scout's trough, and the water sputtered like a dry vein. Just air, then a slow trickle. Within a minute or two, it caught up and flowed normally. I chalked it up to maybe a valve glitch, or maybe the pump needed a flush. But that little pulse of hesitation stuck with me. It happened again the following week, and the week after that. Always early morning, always right before sunrise. The engineer in me started keeping notes. Time, pressure, estimate, duration. I pulled up the logs on my water usage. Nothing had changed indoors. Same patterns, same cycles. But something somewhere was drawing water between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. That's when I walked the perimeter. Scout was limping from a thorn in his paw, so I left him inside and walked the property line with a flashlight near the tree line. That's when I saw soil that had been freshly disturbed. A faint track in the grass leading from behind my tool shed toward the back slope where my fence met the HOA-maintained green belt. The soil was damp and a shallow trench had been poorly covered. I followed it and saw PVC piping, about 2 inches in diameter, just barely peeking through where the dirt had settled. It smelled like fresh glue. Someone had dug into my land and tapped something. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning at the HOA office, I asked if any maintenance or piping work had been done. Cheryl, a mid-40s woman in a stiff blazer and practiced smile, said no. No work, no authorization, no reason to be near my property. When I asked again, she suggested I had probably seen an animal burrow. Sure, a raccoon that lays PVC pipe. That afternoon, I installed a military-grade infrared trail camera behind the shed. For 5 days, nothing. Then on the 6th night, the motion sensor triggered. At dawn, I checked the footage. 2 men in dark clothes, reflective vests, kneeling at the trench with tools. I zoomed in. Their vests read, HOA Facilities Volunteer Oversight. I didn't even know we had volunteers. I saved the footage. That same day, Cheryl called, saying I had placed unauthorized surveillance facing community land and the HOA could escalate this. I told her the camera was on my land. And so was my well. That night, the water pressure dropped even harder. The pump whined like something was pulling water while I was awake. I stayed up. At around 2 a.m., I saw them again. Same men, same trench, same hidden valve panel I hadn't noticed before. I heard it this time too. The faint hiss of pressure being released. They were stealing my water. Quietly. Systematically. For God knows how long. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed proof and understanding of the full scope. The next morning, I contacted a county hydrologist friend, a land use attorney, the HOA maintenance hotline requesting logs. No logs were returned. Instead, Cheryl showed up claiming drainage concerns and tried to inspect my land. I told her she'd need a warrant. Her smile cracked. When I told her I knew about the pipe running from my well to the HOA office compound, her face drained. She walked away without responding. 2 days later, the hydrologist, Mitch, surveyed the land. After hours of tests, he confirmed, they tapped your well using a buried bypass valve. And they made a mistake. If they didn't regulate pressure, it was going to blow. That night, I emailed the HOA board, my lawyer, the county water office. The local paper subject, unauthorized use of private water resources, pending legal action by noon. Black SUVs were at the HOA office. Damage control, A memo appeared in every mailbox. Register all private wells. Failure to comply may result in fines. They tried to legalize the theft after the fact. I sent everything to my lawyer. His response, do not register. They're panicking. And he was right. Because the next evening, the HOA installed a decorative fountain at the clubhouse, cycling fresh water with LED jets. While telling us water conservation was required, so I filmed it, edited it, quiet, controlled, sent it only to the lawyer, the hydrologist, and a journalist. The next morning, the HOA attorney sent me a letter demanding I remove surveillance and submit my well for inspection. We escalated to the State Department of Water Resources. Their investigator arrived. Then a radar crew. They traced the illegal pipe to the fountain. When the pressure reached a tipping point, the ground exploded. Water blasted 10 feet in the air. The fountain shredded. Mud everywhere. Residents screamed. Board members ran. Cheryl slipped in the flood. And everyone saw where the water came from. Phones came out. Videos spread. The HOA tried a statement calling it an infrastructure malfunction, so I leaked the footage anonymously to the neighborhood mailing list. Title, The Hidden Pipeline. They didn't want you to see by noon. The neighborhood was in open revolt. Still the theft. Cars honked in solidarity as they drove past. A few teenagers on bikes filmed everything and uploaded it to TikTok with the hashtag. It went viral by that evening. 6,000 views in 2 hours. Someone even slowed down the video of Cheryl slipping in the mud and set it to dramatic opera music. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I wasn't trying to become a local celebrity. I just wanted the truth to be undeniable, immutable, permanent. But the more the HOA tried to spin it, the more tangled they got. The following week, Bernard filed the formal civil suit, Harland vs. Pine Bluff Ridge HOA. The charges listed trespass, theft of private water, illegal infrastructure development, property damage, environmental endangerment, emotional distress. The filing went public the next day. Local news picked it up. The same footage I had shared anonymously was now playing on Channel 8's 5 p.m. news with the headline, Neighborhood well water stolen by HOA Geyser blows case wide open. The anchor said the word geyser like it was a biblical event. It kind of was. What shocked me the most wasn't the outrage. It was how many neighbors came forward with their own stories. Smaller infractions that had never been addressed. I had a citrus tree, ripped out without notice, one said. They charged me for a sidewalk crack that was on the Greenbelt side, said another. One couple claimed Cheryl threatened them with foreclosure over an unmowed strip of grass, while secretly waiving fees for board members who had worse violations. A pattern was forming, one of entitlement, secrecy, and control. And now it was unraveling. Within 10 days of the geyser, 3 board members resigned. One of the men caught in my night footage, later identified as Roger Klein, facilities oversight lead, admitted to installing the bypass valves under verbal instruction from Cheryl. He claimed he thought it was authorized resource sharing, but sharing requires consent. And they never asked. Meanwhile, the state launched its own parallel investigation. They began auditing HOA records, water usage reports, permit logs. The more they uncovered, the more corrupt it looked. Cheryl, to her credit, didn't run. She stayed, showed up to meetings, wore sunglasses indoors. But her composure cracked in public. At one emergency HOA gathering in the community clubhouse, a homeowner asked her directly, "Did you approve the tapping of Mr. Harland's well?" She paused too long, then said, "That's under legal review." The room erupted in boos. I didn't attend that meeting. I didn't need to. I watched the live stream from my laptop. Scout curled at my feet. Mug of coffee in my hand. The geyser had exposed more than a pipe. It exposed a culture, a quiet rot behind manicured lawns and laminated newsletters, a system that assumed silence meant consent. But now, the silence was gone. 3 weeks after the geyser tore open the truth, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said, "Pick up." "Is this Mr. Harland? The guy with the well?" "Yes." Long pause. "The name's Joel. I think we need to talk. I might have worked on your property." "I didn't know it was your property at the time." I stepped out onto the porch, heart pacing. "Go on." He told me Cheryl had said it was a shared access point, that the board had voted on it, that it was part of the original neighborhood plat, but that was a lie. My lawyer and I had verified the well was on private deeded land before I ever bought the property. Joel's voice cracked with guilt. He explained how Cheryl told him permits would slow things down and that she'd handle the paperwork. He and another worker, Victor, came in after midnight 3 weekends in a row to trench the line, run the pipe, bury it behind my shed, and tie it into the HOA's irrigation. They didn't account for pressure regulation. That's why the geyser happened. Joel asked to meet in person. I agreed and at my lawyer's office. He came carrying a manila folder. Inside were diagrams, invoices, text messages from Cheryl, geotagged photographs of the installation. Bernard reviewed them and simply said, "This is damning." Joel had been paid in cash, extra, to keep things quiet. When I asked him why he was coming forward now, he said, "Because I have a daughter in this neighborhood, and after that geyser I couldn't live with it anymore." For the first time in weeks I felt something other than anger. I felt sorrow. Joel wasn't blameless, but he was human. He signed an affidavit, turned everything over, and that folder became the bombshell that changed the case. Cheryl's lawyer tried to paint the workers as rogue actors, but the text told a different story. The homeowner won't notice. He keeps to himself. No permits. HOA business only. This is our land anyway. He just doesn't know it. That line was poison. Because it wasn't just arrogant, it was wrong. The well parcel had never been part of HOA property at all. Then came another. Leak, not water. A person, a board member named Maggie. She had recordings, and in one of them Cheryl said, "Just siphon the damn thing. He won't fight back." They never do. But this time she was wrong. The courtroom was full the day of the hearing. Not with reporters, but with neighbors. People who once avoided eye contact now sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting, watching. We weren't just arguing about water anymore. We were arguing about the right to be left alone. This wasn't about landscaping. This was a case of calculated, systematic theft of a homeowner's private resource. My well was tapped. My land was trespassed. The resulting failure caused physical damage to HOA property and threatened the safety of residents, including children who were present when the geyser erupted. We were not here because of an accident. We were here because someone thought they could rewrite the law underground. Judge Halverson looked over the exhibits. Joel's affidavit, Maggie's recordings, photos of the ruptured fountain and torn-up lawn, even a printed map showing the illegal tap line running under my fence. When Cheryl's attorney rose, he tried to reframe the situation. He claimed Cheryl had been misled by contractors, that she believed, based on outdated plat documents, that the well was shared. Regrettable, yes, but not malicious. The judge stared at him. Are you saying the emails instructing the contractor to keep it off the books and avoid permits were not written by your client? They were taken out of context, he insisted. Halverson leaned back slowly. Usually, when someone says don't document this, it's not because they're trying to be neighborly. The courtroom let out a low, bitter laugh. Even Bernard smiled. The injunction was granted, effective immediately. The HOA was barred from accessing or using any part of my well system, barred from constructing or repairing irrigation lines near my property, barred from issuing fines, citations, retaliatory letters, or holding closed-door meetings about infrastructure. It wasn't a final verdict, but it was a cannon blast, and the shockwave hit fast. That night, Maggie texted me. Cheryl called an emergency board meeting. She's spiraling. She screamed at Roger in front of everyone. The next day, Roger publicly resigned. He taped a statement to the neighborhood bulletin board. I was told this was HOA sanctioned. I now realize I was used to violate someone's property. I apologized to Mr. Harland and our community. It was pinned right beside a photo of the geyser. One by one, the facade cracked. The HOA's new water restrictions were suspended by the city. Homeowners started holding meetings without the board. Some demanded a forensic audit of all HOA expenses from the last 5 years. I didn't participate. I didn't want to run the neighborhood. But I could feel the shift. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact now brought pie to my doorstep. One woman, Marcy, from 2 streets over, gave me a hand-drawn thank you card from her daughter. She was playing near the clubhouse that day, she said. Voice trembling, could have been her. That hit hard, and yet Cheryl still refused to step down. Even as she appeared in local headlines, she went on the offensive. She accused me of exaggeration, of seeking attention, of weaponizing technicalities. It was pathetic and dangerous, because someone like Cheryl, when cornered, doesn't retreat. She gets desperate. One night, after a walk with Scout, I found my mailbox smashed. Only the mailbox. Nothing else touched. A message. The police shrugged. Bernard didn't. He installed full perimeter security cameras around my property the next morning. "We're not letting her rewrite the ending," he said. Meanwhile, the state was circling. An investigator from the Attorney General's office reached out quietly. Unauthorized diversion of water resources can qualify as felony theft, especially when done by someone in a position of authority. She didn't say Cheryl's name, she didn't have to. That week, the HOA office received a subpoena, emails, financial records, board logs, everything. The neighborhood started watching. Whispers shifted. Cheryl became a ghost in her own kingdom. Then came the storm. A slow, heavy summer storm rolling in after weeks of drought. I was standing on the porch with Scout when the phone rang. Joel sounded scared. "You need to get to the clubhouse. Something's wrong with the ground." I drove through rain-slick streets. Neighbors were clustered around the lawn where the geyser erupted. Except now the ground had collapsed. A crater opened up, 10 feet wide, 6 feet deep. Pipes snapped and twisted, spewing muddy water. The clubhouse wall had cracked top to bottom, and Cheryl was there, soaked, screaming, trying to blame someone. Anyone. But no one was listening anymore. Joel ran over to me. Breathless, "It wasn't just the tap line," he said. "They built a secondary sump system under the clubhouse. No permits, no drainage. They were trying to siphon overflow into a hidden tank, a water vault, under the building, unreinforced. When the storm hit and the ground softened, pressure increased and the earth gave way. The fire department arrived. They didn't fight flames. They fought collapse. As they pulled out boxes from the clubhouse, a firefighter handed me a water-stained folder. It contained meeting minutes from years before I moved in, letters from the city, a formal denial of access to the well. They knew. Cheryl knew. Years ago. She just chose to do it anyway. The next morning, Bernard called. "She's resigning, officially. Her attorney filed it this morning." I exhaled. "It's over," I said. "No," Bernard replied. "Not yet. The state isn't done." When the charges were announced, I didn't feel triumphant. The silence afterward was heavy, like the air after thunder. Bernard asked if I was okay. I told him I was just tired. Because when a long fight ends, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like finally being able to breathe. That night, the neighborhood held its first meeting without the HOA board. No gavels, no bylaws, no power plays. Just neighbors in a library room with coffee cups and folding chairs. There were apologies, laughter. People actually listened to each other. I didn't speak much. But when someone asked about the well, everyone looked at me. I said it was capped now, protected, safe. No one would be tapping into it again. Maggie raised her hand. "But it gave us something," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, it showed us what was under the surface. And not just in the ground, in us." 3 days later, I was sitting under flickering office lights at City Hall across from a state investigator named Natalia Reyes. Calm voice, sharp eyes, everything neat and precise. She told me she'd seen HOAs bend rules before, but nothing like this. They didn't just misuse authority. They'd built a hidden utility system under everyone's feet. She laid out the evidence, emails, maps, payment logs. Then she slid forward a document labeled Confidential Long-Term Water Independence Plan. Cheryl had been planning to siphon private wells for years. Mine was just the test run. If it worked, more would follow. I asked how much trouble Cheryl was in. Natalia explained there would be state charges for environmental negligence, civil penalties, possibly fraud if they proved the financial forgery. And the collapse under the clubhouse meant public safety charges too. The consequences were moving now, gathering momentum. The final pretrial hearing came the following week. Cheryl didn't look like the woman who once ran the neighborhood with polished nails and iron confidence. She looked small, cornered. Bernard gave the closing statement. He said this wasn't just about stolen water. It was about trust, the foundation of any community. The judge promised a ruling soon. 2 days later, Cheryl broke. Her lawyer offered a settlement. Public apology, full restitution for damages, and permanent resignation from any HOA role in the state. We accepted. The apology letter went up on every bulletin board, every email list. Some neighbors said she cried writing it. I didn't care. What mattered was what came next. The new board formed. Maggie became president. Independent audits began. Meetings were open to everyone. Budgets were transparent. Neighbors started talking again. Kids played outside without someone patrolling the sidewalks for violations. The crater where the clubhouse once stood was cleared. The community decided to plant a garden there. Maggie told me it started with your water, so something living should grow from it. We held a small ceremony and buried the last broken piece of the illegal pipe under a plaque that read, "Let truth rise where control once buried it." When the caution tape came down, the lot was filled with raised garden beds and citrus saplings. People volunteered to take care of them. When Maggie asked if I wanted to join the first planting group, I said no. I'd harvested enough from this place already. Cheryl moved away quietly. One morning, her house was just empty. No goodbye. A week later, I found a handwritten note in my mailbox from her. It said she thought she could control everything, but pressure builds inside people too until it has to break. I read it twice, then burned it. Some things are better left to smoke, but other things stayed. Neighbors brought vegetables to my porch. Kids waved when they biked by. The quiet I had wanted when I first moved here finally returned. Not a forced quiet, but an earned one. I repaired the wellhead myself. Added stone, sealed the access, installed a motion camera. Not out of fear, but respect. Trust isn't automatic. It must be tended. One morning at sunrise, I stood over the well and realized it had become more than a water source. It was a boundary, a truth line, a reminder that some lines in life aren't meant to be crossed. The county paper wrote a piece titled, "One Man's Well Stopped an HOA Machine." They called it rebellion, but it wasn't. It was restoration. Later, the city invited me to join a new advisory committee to protect homeowners' rights in water planning. I agreed. No one should have to fight alone in the dark to defend what's theirs. One afternoon, Maggie stopped by with a jar of pickled cucumbers and a thank you card signed by dozens of neighbors. She asked if I ever thought about leaving. I told her I had, back when the pressure was highest. But staying wasn't about winning. It was about drawing a line that mattered. The well was just the beginning, she said before she left. That night, I sat outside barefoot in the grass with Scout sleeping beside me. The well hummed beneath the earth like a steady heartbeat. I thought of everything buried, everything unearthed, everything rebuilt. Pressure builds. But when it breaks, it doesn't only destroy. Sometimes it cleans. I poured a glass of cold water from the outdoor tap, raised it toward the sky. Not a toast. A vow. Never again. Not on my land. Not under my feet. Not while I'm still standing.